Hi, I'm Patrick Jiguer with Cosmic Alchemist Astrology. Thanks very much for tuning in to this latest episode. So in this video, I want to share some good news. People haven't heard it already. And I want to talk about the collapse of the U.S. Ministry of Truth. The real name for this organization was a Disinformation Governance Board, DGB for short. So ironically, one letter away from KGB, which was an intelligence agency in the Soviet Union. So this DGB, for the whole month that it lasted, was part of the Department of Homeland Security, which is a very creepy branch of government. Started back in the early days of the War on Terror, late 2001, I think it was early 2002. One of the most prominent consultants that helped create Homeland Security was Marcus Wolf, who was a high-level Stasi official. So the Stasi was the East German secret police. It was their intelligence organization. He was head of foreign intelligence. So, it's funny because the right wing, the Republicans, they're always trying to accuse people of being communists, but then they hired a communist to help create this organization. So, the Republicans are communists too, and the Democrats definitely are. And I'm not talking about the people, but I'm talking about the politicians and the bureaucrats and the government officials. So anyway, this DGB was going to be the arbiter of truth and disinformation. So it was going to rest upon them to decide what information in the public sphere, so all forms of communication, whether written, audio, visual, internet, you name it, they were going to be the ones who were going to decide what was true and what was it. So very scary to place in the hands of a few people. And it definitely was cause for concern, but people actually stepped up to the plate. So just ordinary people, internet influencers, even journalists, and even members of Congress, and not just Republicans, but even Democrats are out against it. Even the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, which is very left-leaning, came out against this organization. So it basically buckled under popular and political pressure. And they whined about this. Basically the difference between Republicans and Democrats, or left and right, it's like the Republicans or the right, they love to portray themselves as tough guys, and their supporters very often like to see themselves as tough guys, or they at least like to promote tough guys, and they love it when they do their thing in public. And then the left or the Democrats, they tend to like victims. They support sort of wimpy people who are brainy, and whenever they meet resistance, whenever their agendas meet resistance, they whine and cry and pull the victim card, whereas the Republicans are, talk about kicking ass and all this shit. And the Republicans are a bunch of pussies. So, they both suck. I'm not saying one's better than the other, by any means. But it was interesting that people on both sides came out against this. And this just goes to show how dangerous that idealism can be. I really consider myself a realist. That, it would be nice for things to be perfect and totally transparent, everyone to get along, but human nature doesn't always allow that. So I like to be a realist and see what I'm really dealing with and see how it really works. So if I like the idea of idealism, but very often people refuse to see what's in front of them. And if you refuse to see what is in the present moment and what's in front of you, and what people are really like and what really motivates them, then you can't really proclaim yourself to be intelligent or courageous. So in any case, it was very encouraging to see people on both sides of the whole political reality show coming out against this. And yeah, this goes to show how dangerous idealism can be, because the director of this DGB, this Ministry of Truth, was really this busybody, this career bureaucrat, Nina Jankowicz, and she made a TikTok video of basically she changed the lyrics in a Mary Poppins song.
Information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote.
So Nina Jankowicz is definitely makes a case for how dangerous idealism can be. Idealism can be good because it sort of motivates people in very good-hearted and pure ways, but then it also motivates people to think that they know what's best for others because they have more degrees from, universities, and they belong to the right party and they have all the facts and you don't. So she put out some, I think it was on Twitter, she put out some social media posts where she said, just call me the Mary Poppins of disinformation. And she changed the lyrics to one of the songs from Mary Poppins, and she was, belting that out on camera. So, this is a fucking know-it-all who thinks she's going to order our lives for us, and she's going to tell us what thoughts are fit to think and what words are fit to speak and which aren't. Now, the funny thing here is that Homeland Security came under so much pressure that they scrapped this thing, and they said, well, we've paused the Disinformation Governance Board. And it's like, no, they haven't paused it. They've scrapped it. Now we have to be careful that this whole concept doesn't reincarnate in another way. But it's a good thing this is gone, because there are enough fucking know-it-alls at all of the social media companies, which are just government, which are just ruling party mouthpieces anyway. And this was just going to make it even worse. It's going to put the seal of the approval of Homeland Security behind it. And it really was going to be an Orwellian disinformation organization. So, yeah, so the funny thing is they came under so much pressure that this went away. And so, again, Nina Jankowicz, who's like a very far-left Democrat, totally played the victim card. And she was like, well, we came under so much pressure from right-wingers that we couldn't do it anymore. It's like, well, not Homeland Security, ACLU is not right-wing. So, but this is just how it works. Again, with politics, right-wingers love to pretend to be tough guys and talk about whose asses are going to kick when their agendas hit resistance. And then with left-wingers, when their agendas hit resistance, they play the victim card and they cry. So who wants to be part of either of those parties? I have no idea. But it's good that this happened. And I want to put this into some historical context here. So we right now are basically in the beginning of a new Protestant Reformation. So if you're not really up on your history, the Protestant Reformation really kicked off in 1517. And this is when Martin Luther, who the Lutheranist denomination of Christianity is named after, this is when he nailed his protest, his formal written protest, the 99 Theses, to the door of Wittenberg Cathedral in Germany. He did this on October 31st, so on Samhain, aka Halloween, the name the Christian church gave it. So, yeah, he basically nailed this written protest to the door of the cathedral, and he was a priest who was, very sick of the corruption, the flagrant corruption of the Catholic Church, because they had a monopoly, they had no rival, and they could really do whatever they wanted. And a lot of people at this time wanted Bibles printed in their own languages. They wanted to read the Bible in their own language. They wanted to have their own opinion about what the Bible meant. They wanted to have their own interpretation. And they wanted to learn how to read. The Catholic Church was stopping people from learning how to read. They were actually persecuting people who were teaching people how to read. So Yeah, they went around saying they loved everyone and they were compassionate and they were purveyors of God's love and all this shit. But they were completely oppressive. So really all this censorship since the Trump presidency, it's like the Catholic Church's push against the Protestant Reformation. It's a counter-reformation. That was the Catholic Church's campaign against Protestantism, against personal religious freedom. Now, as I say this, I'm not making a case for the Protestant churches. The Protestant churches are 95% Catholic. Nobody remembers what Christianity even was before the Catholic Church got rolling. I think it was the year 325 CE. So it's been 1700 years. People don't even know what was before that. So all the Protestants have is Catholicism with a little spin on it, made to look more transparent. So yeah, and anyway, in the age of Aquarius, all these churches are going away. All of these churches, so we're talking Christian, Jewish, Islamic, Buddhist, who have been conducting great resets for the last 2,000 years, who have been going out and erasing histories, burning libraries, destroying spiritual traditions, even wiping out entire tribes and nations of people. They're on their way out because they were organizations of the age of Pisces. So now that we're starting the age of Aquarius, the theme is personal freedom, spiritual freedom, freedom of information. So these churches are going away. And they've all been authoritarian in their own right. Even growing up as a Catholic, a type of Christian, I'm most familiar with that history. Even Jesus has had 50 million people sacrificed to him by his followers. So the time has come for all of these churches to come to an end. Not violently and abruptly, but people are going to move on. So anyway, that's very important to the theme of this video. So let's look at the history of this. So again, I drew a parallel between 2 years here. So I drew parallels between 1517 and 2019. So 500 years apart, but some very interesting astrological similarities. Big thing they had in common that had not happened for that amount of time. You had Saturn and Pluto in Sagittarius with eclipses there in both years. So what's Sagittarius all about? Sagittarius is all about belief systems, philosophies, education, higher education. So worldviews, religions, spirituality, university level education. Sagittarius is about the truth, which there really is no truth in the world. There are only truths that are agreed upon because people have different cultures, different values. Nobody can agree on what absolute truth is, but groups of people tend to get together and agree on what the truth actually is. That's the best you can do. So in both times, people were angry and screaming about the truth and saying they had the truth and these people don't have the truth. So that's Sagittarius. When you get Saturn and Pluto in there, Saturn is karma. Saturn is all about the law. Saturn is all about doing things the right way in accordance with spiritual law and the law of the universe, not the law of governments, the law of man. And then Pluto's the god of the underworld. So what Pluto does, Pluto shows you what's underneath the surface. Pluto makes you deal with deep wounds, deep errors, deep mistakes. Pluto makes you deal with hidden truths. Pluto shows you things that were hidden from you. Perhaps your whole life, perhaps for generations. And Pluto makes you deal with them. So as the god of the underworld, Pluto is not a tormentor or a torturer. Pluto just pushes you to heal yourself and to heal your family, your society, your culture, your whatever. whatever groups you identify with. So, and then with the eclipses, so again, you had eclipses in Sagittarius in both of these years while Saturn and Pluto were in there. So they do deal with new beginnings because solar eclipses take place on the new moon because they're a conjunction of Sun, Moon, and one of the nodes of the moon, either Rahu or Ketu. So, in both of these years, Ketu was the node that was conjunct with the Sun and the Moon during these solar eclipses. So Ketu is all about letting things go. Ketu, on a bad day, can be an extremist, can be a religious extremist. And in both years, there's a lot of religious extremism. In 2019, but science has started, and politics have started to take the place of traditional religion. And they are a religion in and of themselves. So, but yeah, back to the point about eclipses. Eclipses are new beginnings. Eclipses are times when we can sort of take inventory of what's going on. So, eclipses always deal with a darkening of a luminary, whether they're solar or lunar. So the sun is a macrocosmic version of the soul. It's the greater macrocosmic soul. It symbolizes that. Whereas the moon symbolizes the macrocosmic collective mind. So when you get a solar eclipse, it's basically the power of the soul, or the light of the soul, is darkened temporarily. I liken this to basically shutting off a spotlight that's shining in your face, because light can illuminate things, and then light can also blind you and deceive you. So if you have a spotlight shining on you, you have this whole wide spot in your field of vision where you can't see anything, because your eyes are attuned and adjusted to bright light. So when that spotlight shuts off, your eyes will attune to the dark, and you can see what was really going on around you. And this is why, through history people talk about how people and animals, the natural world goes crazy during solar eclipses. It's because we get a chance to kind of pause, to take a break, and see what was really going on. So, this happened in both of those years. So in 1517, this eclipse, because it's Sagittarius, they're always in December. It was on December 23rd, 1517. Sun and the moon were conjunct Ketu to create the eclipse. And then, like I said, Pluto and Sagittarius. Pluto and Saturn were in Sagittarius. Damn. And Sun and Moon were at 13 degrees. So then you jump to 2019. That was on December 26th, day after Christmas. So Sun and Moon were conjunct again with Ketu. Saturn and Pluto were in Sagittarius. Then you also had Jupiter and Mercury in there. So I think in the future, looking back, 2019 will be a much bigger year for the awakening and for the freedom of humanity than 1517 was, even though 1517 was a huge year. It was when the Western world started standing up to the Catholic Church, which has been a total parasite for almost 2,000 years. So I think it's going to be a bigger deal, because along with Saturn and Pluto and Ketu, you've got Jupiter. And a year later, Jupiter and Saturn actually met up in Capricorn, which is all about manifestation. It was all about creating a new order in the realms of government and hierarchy and authority. But they were together in Sagittarius in 2019. So this was all about, I guess the best way I can put it, it was all about rearranging how we think and what we see as the truth and what we see as valuable knowledge, and really rearranging our worldviews. And then having Mercury there. Mercury is the intellect, and Mercury is communication and media and all that stuff. So more planets involved. 2019 was there was a bigger pileup of planets in the house where the solar eclipse in Sagittarius was going on. A bigger pileup than 1517. So I think in the future, like I said, 2019 will be a bigger year. This was really, it'll really be the start of the biggest freedom movement and the biggest truth movement that the world has ever seen. So this is a very positive sign to have this DGB, this Disinformation Government Board, this U.S. Ministry of Truth, to see it collapse. And you know, these people just look like a bunch of fools. They're just whining and crying and playing the victim card that their little organization couldn't go forward, you know, that it was basically scrapped by the Department of Homeland Security. So yeah, this is very encouraging, and you know, a lot of people have freaked out about this. A lot of people have freaked out about all kinds of stuff. Just remember that these people are losing, and this is an indication of it. People in government weren't having it, and people in the population weren't having it. Because you know that deep state, elements of deep state who control Homeland Security, you know they have AIs hooked up to the internet, and they're reading the internet, and they're scanning people's reactions to everything that go on. So they saw people's reactions. People immediately, when this news came out, people started calling it the Ministry of Truth, like in Orwell's 1984. So it was an immediate reaction. People weren't ready to fuck around with this and play games with this. So this is very encouraging. So just remember this. Because as a society right now, we have huge fear addiction. And the media, news media, even alternative media, they peddle paranoid fantasies. They peddle fear, because whether you're mainstream media or alternative media, fear and sensationalism and panic gets people views, it gets people clicks, and it gets people to buy shit in their online stores. It's like with Alex Jones with his online store where he has all the health products, and he whips up huge hysteria, and he's like, go to my online store quick and buy these supplements, and blah blah blah. So excuse me. So yeah, that's the thing to remember right now, is all media is fear-based and it's sensational. Even the ones who are saying, I'm a health ranger, I'm a truth warrior, I'm gonna tell you the truth and bring down the deep state, they're still scaring the shit out of you so that you'll subscribe to their channels and buy their newsletter and buy their products and buy their streaming videos. And so yeah, just remember, these people are fucked. They're failing hardcore. They really have their nuts in a vice. If they were winning, we wouldn't know about any of this. We wouldn't be afraid of anything. We'd be having a great time shopping online and filling our houses with shit and just thinking how great that was. We'd be having American dreams of granite countertops and thinking everything was great. So yeah, things are turning the corner. Doesn't seem like it right now, but you give it a year or two, you're going to notice that things are changing and the world's not going to be the same, and we're not going to hell. We're not going to be micromanaged and ruled by these fools forever and ever. I do think I got to do some videos about some planetary returns that are happening soon. But in the next couple of years, I do think the United States and a lot of countries will split. I think to give you a little preview, I think the blue states, so we're talking the North and the West Coast, I think they're going to be the rebels, just like they were in 1861. So in 1861, the Democratic Party controlled the American South. They pulled away. They were the slave party. They pulled away, and they were the rebels. I think in about 25, 26, something similar is going to happen. I don't see an all-out bloodbath civil war. I think it's going to be something political, something commercial, something legal. I think there's going to be some kind of separation within the United States. It may not even be two countries like it was during the American Civil War, but there's going to be some sort of separation. There's going to be a pulling away. Maybe just greater autonomy for areas of the country that don't want to be under the full control of the federal government. So I think between now and then, I think the Republicans are going to gain control of the federal government back, and then I think the Democrats won't be able to effectively play the victim card and whine and cry and get sympathy, and they're going to peel off. So, and that's one reason I moved south in the last couple of years. I don't want to be stuck with that. So yeah, I think people in those areas are going to be sympathetic to it, and they're going to go along with it. But yeah, things are turning around, and within a few years we're all going to be like, where the hell did this come from? Things will look very different. So keep your heads up, and don't give in to the fear, and realize that these deep state fuckers are desperate. We wouldn't know they were at work if they were succeeding right now. So since we know about them, they're failing, and they're overplaying their hands, and they're doing things out in the open, which is extremely dangerous and is not ideal. They like to work behind the scenes. They don't like to work out in the open. And that's one reason why this DGB, this Ministry of Truth, fell apart. Because I think they were only going to go forward with it if people just accepted it and sort of ignored it and went back to watching sports and reality TV. And the other thing too, I think with Elon Musk backing down from the Twitter deal, that could be a reason why they didn't go forward with it, because I think he was what prompted the whole thing. So they'll keep going with the status quo a little longer. Twitter will still be a leading party mouthpiece, and but we won't have this Ministry of Truth. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for tuning in. If you've not had a reading with me, I highly recommend it. Vedic astrology readings are sort of the mainstay of what I do. It's a great way to get a different look at your mind and to see how the astrology of the current times affects you. See what your opportunities and your potential pitfalls are. I do the rune readings, another great mind map, and I do I Ching readings too. And that's a good way to see how situations and circumstances in your life and in the world change, and how you can adapt to those, and to see where you fit into them. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'll be talking to you later. Have a nice one.